What would you do if everyone around you was dying and the one person who could save them was the same person they'd spent months tearing down? Mira Booker moves through the field hospital like water, through stone silent, efficient, invisible her. Hands know every wire, every circuit board, every backup generator that keeps the monitors beating in this canvas fortress 20 miles from the front lines. The medics call her Ghost not because she's dead, but because she appears when machines fail. Disappears when they hum again, never speaks, unless spoken to, never stays for the thank you. She's been here 8 months. Now 8 months of fixing what breaks, what gets shot, what overheats in the desert sun, what freezes in the mountain cold, what simply gives up under the weight of keeping people alive. Her toolbox sits in the corner of the main, dented metal case her father gave her before she shipped out, filled with precision instruments, multimeters, and oscilloscopes, wire strippers and voltage testers, digital calipers, and thermal imaging guns, everything she needs to keep death at bay. The case bears scars, now shrapnel nicks from the mortar attack in June, scorch marks from the electrical fire in July, dents from being dropped. While running toward emergencies, each mark a story, each story a life. Save today. The autumn air carries something different, not just cordite and diesel exhaust, but tension, the kind that makes good soldiers stupid, the kind that gets people killed. The kind that turns allies into enemies. Staff Sergeant Bo Gallagher kicks open the tent flap. His voice cuts through the steady beep of life. Support, his uniform pristine despite the chaos around him, metals gleaming in the artificial light. Authority worn like armor. Mira. Generator 3 is down again. Fix it. Now. She doesn't look up from the ventilator. She's calibrating the machine that's keeping Private Zion Price alive after shrapnel tore through his lung 2 days ago. The same machine she rebuilt 3 times. When spare parts ran out, when hope ran thin, just nods, sets down her multimeter, checks the readout one more time, walks toward the back of the compound. Behind her, Gallagher's laugh follows like smoke. That woman wouldn't say boo to a ghost, but she sure can make these machines sing better than any tech I've seen. Shame about everything else. The other medics join in. Corpseman Nash Hawthorne mimics her walk, all hunched shoulders and careful steps, the way she moves when she's concentrating, when she's solving problems they can't understand, when she's saving their lives. Look at me, I'm Robot Booker. Beep, boop, beep. Does not compute human emotion processing. Technical solution specialist Liana Griffin adds sound effects. Beep, 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 like she's some kind of robot herself, like she doesn't have feelings, like she doesn't hear every word, like she doesn't matter. Petty Officer Bodie Rourke chimes in. Robot Booker, that's what we should call her. Processes information, executes commands, no emotional responses, no personal connections, just cold efficiency. The laughter gets louder, meaner, more personal, the kind that follows you into sleep, into dreams, into the quiet moments when you question everything. Mira doesn't turn around, doesn't react, just keeps walking, but her hands clench into fists just for a moment before she forces them to relax, before she remembers her training, before she remembers her purpose. The generator sits behind a wall of sandbags, coughing black smoke into the sky. The third breakdown this week, each failure a potential death sentence for whoever needs the power most. She pops the housing piers inside. With a penlight, the beam cuts through the mechanical darkness, revealing carbon buildup, fuel contamination, where patterns that tell stories. The problem isn't complex fuel line blockage from bad diesel, dirty air filter clogged with desert sand, carbon buildup on the spark plug, corroded connections from moisture, maybe 20 minutes to fix if she works fast. If nothing else breaks, but as she works, her mind drifts to the letter folded in her breast pocket, the one that arrived this morning from her father back in Oregon, where the air smells like pine trees instead of blood, and diesel where machines break down slowly instead of catastrophically. Mira, honey, I know you don't talk much about what you do over there, military communications being what they are, security and all that, but your mother found something in your grandfather's thing, something I think you should know about. He was proud of his service. Korean War, Incheon landing, chosen reservoir, never talked about it much the way soldiers don't, but he kept everything, every medal, every commendation, every photograph, every letter home. There's a box here with your name on it, written in his handwriting, the same careful script he used for everything important. He wanted you to have it when you were ready, when you understood what it means to serve, what it costs to save lives, what it takes to stand alone. I don't know what ready means, but I thought, given where you are, what you're doing, how long you've been gone, maybe now is the time. Your mother worries about you being so far away, so quiet in your letters, so careful with your words. But I tell her you're doing important work, work that matters, work that saves lives. She'd stopped reading there, tucked it away. There's no room for yesterday. When today keeps trying to kill people, when every second counts, when one mistake means death. The generator sputters to life, steady rhythm, like a metal heartbeat, like the sound of everything working the way it should, the way it has to. She gathers her tools, each one cleaned and checked, each one returned to its proper place. The ritual of maintenance, the discipline of preparedness, heads back toward the tents, but stops when she hears her name floating from inside the main surgical tent, where they think she can't hear, where they think she doesn't care. From inside the main surgical tent, Gallagher's voice carries clear and cruel. That Booker girl is something else, useful as a wrench, reliable as a machine, about as personable too. More laughter follows, multiple voices, people whose lives she's saved, whose equipment she's maintained, whose emergencies she's solved, talking about her like she's equipment, like she's not human, like she can't hear them, like she doesn't bleed. Dr. Opal Mendez speaks up, her voice tired but firm, the only one who ever defends her, the only one who sees, the only one who cares. She does good work, oh, better than good, exceptional work. Leave her be. Gallagher scoffs, the sound of someone who's never been wrong, never been questioned, never been anything but loud and certain, never had to prove himself, with quiet competence. Good work doesn't make good soldiers, Doc. And in a place like this, you need both. You need someone who can think under pressure, someone who can make decisions, someone who can lead, someone who can inspire confidence. Griffin's voice joins in, sharp and cutting. All she does is hide behind her machines. When was the last time anyone saw her actually talk to a patient? Actually show some emotion? Actually act like she gives a damn? Hawthorne agrees, piling on. It's like she doesn't care about any of us, about what we're doing here, about the mission. She just fixes things and walks away like we're not even people. Mira stands frozen between the generator's satisfied purr and the sound of people she protects, discussing whether she deserves protection in return, whether she belongs, whether she matters, whether she's anything more than the sum of her technical skills, whether her silence means she doesn't care or whether it means she cares too much. A helicopter approaches from the east, medevac incoming, wounded. The sound cuts through everything, through the conversation, through her thoughts, through the hurt, through the loneliness. The conversation inside stops, footsteps scatter, preparation mode, the dance. They all know the rhythm of saving lives, the choreography of emergency medicine. Mira slips back to her corner, checks the power distribution panel, makes sure every light will hold, every machine will keep breathing, every monitor will keep watching, every alarm will sound when it needs to, every system will function when function means life or death, because that's what she does, keep things running, keep people alive, even when those same people would rather she disappear entirely, even when they see her as less than human, even when they forget that machines need someone to fix them. The helicopter touches down, rotors still spinning, dust everywhere, brown clouds that taste like grit and metal, that burn the eyes, that coat everything in the fine powder of war, and in the swirling brown chaos as medics run toward the wounded, as voices shout orders, as stretchers emerge from the aircraft. Mira sees something that makes her stop, a quiet woman in civilian clothes standing at the edge of the landing zone, watching everything, taking notes, clipboard in hand, eyes that miss nothing, face that reveals nothing but sees everything. Their eyes meet for just a moment, across the chaos, across the noise, across the judgment. The woman nods like she recognizes something, something important, something familiar, something that matters. The moment passes, the wounded arrive, blood and shouting, the controlled chaos of emergency medicine, the dance between life and death that never stops, that never rests. And Mira returns to her machines, her silence, her invisible work, her corner of the world where she keeps everything functioning, where she fights death with precision and knowledge, with skill and dedication, with quiet competence. But the woman's nod stays with her like a question she doesn't know how to answer, like a door she's afraid to open, like recognition from someone who sees what others miss, who understands what others ignore. What do you do when the people who need you most are the same people who see you least? The generators keep humming, the monitors keep beeping, the lights keep burning, and somewhere in the distance, another helicopter approaches with more broken things for her to fix, more lives for her to save. The woman in civilian clothes doesn't leave with the helicopter. She stays walking between the tents, observing, taking notes on everything, the way medics move, the way equipment functions, the way people interact when they think no one important is watching. Mira catches glimpses of her throughout the next 3 days, always at the edges, always quiet, always writing. Dr. Mendez calls her Inspector Santiago from the Department of Veterans Affairs here to evaluate field operations medical protocols, personnel efficiency, the kind of evaluation that makes careers or breaks them. Clover Santiago, that's her name spoken in whispers by people who suddenly remember their best behavior, their proper procedures, their regulation compliance. But Mira notices something different: the way Santiago's eyes linger on the electrical panels on the generator, housings on the diagnostic equipment, like she understands what she's seeing, like she knows what matters beyond the obvious. On Thursday morning, generator 2 starts throwing sparks, not dangerous yet, but close, the kind of problem that turns deadly fast. Mira responds immediately, tools in hand, moving with practiced urgency, while Santiago watches from 20 feet away, still taking notes. The repair takes 40 minutes: rewiring the main distribution panel, replacing corroded contactors, cleaning oxidized connections, the kind of work that looks simple until you try to do it. When she finishes, Santiago approaches her, footsteps deliberate, her expression unreadable. That was impressive work, she says. How long have you been doing electrical systems? Since I was 12, Mira replies, surprised by her own voice, by the fact that she answered, by the fact that someone asked. Santiago nods, makes another note. My grandfather was an electrician, Navy ships, World War II. He always said the people who keep the lights on are the people who keep everyone alive. Something in her voice makes Mira look up, really look at this quiet woman who sees what others miss. I'd like to speak with you, Santiago continues, when you have time, about your work here, about your training, about your grandfather. Mira's hand moves instinctively to her breast pocket, to the letter she still hasn't finished reading, the one about boxes and names and things worth knowing. How did you know about my grandfather? Santiago smiles, the first real expression Myra's seen from her eye. Make it my business to know about people who do important work quietly. That afternoon, while the others take their meal break, Mira finds herself alone with Santiago in the equipment tent, surrounded by spare parts and diagnostic manuals and the smell of machine oil. Tell me about your family, Santiago says. Your grandfather specifically, he was an engineer, Mira answers carefully. Korean War, didn't talk about it much. Santiago nods, opens her clipboard, pulls out a photograph, black and white edges worn soft, shows it to Mira. The man in the photo wears a uniform she recognizes, Army Corps of Engineers, standing next to what looks like a massive generator, bigger than anything in their current facility. That's Technical Sergeant William Booker. Santiago says quietly, your grandfather, chosen reservoir, November 1950. Mira stares at the photograph, at the young man who looks like her father, who has her hands, her careful stance, her serious expression. He kept the field hospital running. Santiago continues for 17 days in sub-zero temperatures, under constant enemy fire, when the main power grid failed, when the backup systems froze, when everyone said it was impossible. The photograph trembles slightly in Myra's hands as Santiago continues. 87 wounded soldiers survived those 17 days because your grandfather refused to let the lights go out, refused to let the machine stop, refused to give up. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions, one of the highest decorations for non-combat personnel. But that's not why I'm here. Santiago reaches into her bag, pulls out a small wooden box, dark walnut, polished smooth, with brass corners and a nameplate that reads Mirabo. This arrived at my office last week from your father, along with a request that I deliver it personally. When I found the right moment, Mira takes the box, feels its weight, solid, important, heavy, with history inside. Nestled in faded velvet is a metal bronze star, suspended from red, white, and blue ribbon, and underneath folded papers, technical drawings, equipment schematics in her grandfather's handwriting, the same careful script from the letter, but these are different. These are instructions, modifications, improvements, ways to make generators more reliable, more efficient, more likely to save lives. Santiago watches her read, watches her understand, watches the connection form between past and present, between grandfather and granddaughter, between then and now. He wrote these after the war, Santiago explains, submitted them to the Army as recommendations for field hospital equipment. Most were implemented, some are still in use today, including the modifications on generator 3, the one you fixed yesterday. Mira looks up, understanding dawning like sunrise, slow, then sudden. You've been making the same improvements. Santiago continues, the same adjustments, the same solutions, without ever seeing his notes, without ever knowing that he faced the same problems, found the same answers. It's like you inherited not just his tools, but his instincts, his understanding, his gift. Outside the tent, voices approach, Gallagher's laugh, Griffin's complaints, the daily symphony of people who don't understand What they're hearing. Santiago closes her clipboard, tucks the photograph away, but leaves the box in Myra's hands. Keep this safe, she says, but not hidden. Not anymore. Your grandfather's work saved lives, then your work saves lives now. That's a legacy. Worth honoring, worth recognizing, worth respect. She moves toward the tent flap, then stops, turns back. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, because stories like this happen everywhere, in every corner of the world where quiet people do essential work without recognition, without thanks, without understanding. Tomorrow, Santiago says, I'll be observing your colleagues, their methods, their attitudes, their leadership, and I'll be asking questions about team dynamics, about respect, about who really keeps this place running. The tent flap closes, leaving Mira alone with the box, with the metal, with the drawings, with the weight of inherited purpose. She runs her fingers over the technical sketches, sees her own handwriting in her grandfather's notes, sees her own solutions in his innovations, sees herself in his legacy. Outside, the generators hum, the monitors beep, the lights burn steady, and for the first time in 8 months, Mira understands that she's not just fixing machines, she's continuing a conversation started 70 years ago by a man who faced the same impossible choices, the same impossible odds, the same impossible people, who found a way to keep the lights on when everyone else gave up hope. The metal catches the light, bronze and ribbon, heavy with meaning, heavy with recognition, heavy with the knowledge that some things are worth more than applause, some things are worth more than understanding, some things are worth everything. The next morning brings fresh casualties and fresh cruelty. Gallagher enters the tent like he owns it, like he owns everything, including the people inside. Booker, he barks, don't touch anything today. We've got real engineers coming to show you how it's done. Behind him, 3 men in clean uniforms, clipboard specialists from headquarters who've never worked under fire, under pressure, under the weight of other people's lives. This is our technical staff, Gallagher announces. Specialist Booker here has been jury rigging everything instead of following proper protocols. The lead engineer, a captain with soft hands and newer boots, looks around dismissively. I can see that unauthorized modifications, non-standard wiring, improvised solutions, this equipment barely meets basic safety standards. Mira opens her mouth to explain, to defend, to educate, but Gallagher cuts her off. She's not authorized to make engineering decisions. That's above her pay grade, above her skill level, above her station. The captain nods, pulls out measuring instruments, begins disconnecting everything Mira has built, everything that works, everything that saves lives. Wait, Dr. Mendez appears, her voice sharp with authority. Those modifications are keeping my patients alive. Don't touch them. The captain doesn't even look up. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but medical personnel don't understand electrical systems. These jury-rigged solutions are dangerous, unreliable, unacceptable. He pulls another connection loose, a circuit. Mira designed to route power more efficiently, to prevent overloads, to keep critical systems running when everything else fails. Generator 3 begins to stutter. The voltage drops, monitors flicker, life support systems switch to battery backup. Mira steps forward, her voice quiet but urgent. You're creating a cascade failure if you disconnect the load balancing circuit without rerouting the primary feed. You'll overload generator 1 and lose everything. The captain laughs, actually laughs at her expertise, at her knowledge, at her desperation. Miss, I have a degree in electrical engineering from West Point. I think I know more about power systems than some enlisted technician who learned everything from a manual. He pulls another connection. Generator 1 begins to strain, the gauges climb into the red zone, while alarms start to sound. Mira tries again, louder this time. Stop, you're going to cause a complete power failure. People will die. Gallagher steps between them, his voice cold. You're out of line. Booker, stand down now. Around the tent, other personnel watch, some concerned, some entertained, all silent. Nash Hawthorne actually smiles, enjoying the show, the humiliation, the public dressing down. Griffin whispers to Bodie Rourke, finally someone putting robot Booker in her place. The captain continues his work, disconnecting, dismantling, destroying everything that functions in favor of everything that follows regulations. The main power grid fails exactly as Mira predicted, exactly when she said it would, exactly how she warned it would happen. Emergency lighting kicks in, red glow everywhere, like blood, like warning, like the end of everything critical. Patients begin to crash, ventilators switch to battery, monitors lose signal, surgical lights dim to almost nothing. Dr. Mendez shouts, we need power now, right now. People are dying. The captain stares at his instruments, at his calculations, at his failure, his soft hands shaking as reality sets. I don't understand. He whispers, the math was correct, the connections were Standard this should have worked. Mira doesn't wait for permission, for approval, for acknowledgement. She moves through the red-lit chaos to the main distribution panel, begins reconnecting her modifications, her improvements, her solutions working by feel by instinct, by the knowledge that lives hang in the balance of every decision. Gallagher grabs her arm, yanks her back. You're not authorized to touch that equipment. She jerks free, something fierce finally breaking through her careful composure. People are dying, she says, her voice carrying for the first time in 8 months. And you care more about regulations than results, more about authority than ability, more about rank than responsibility. The tent goes quiet, except for the alarms, except for the emergency calls, except for the sound of everything failing. Gallagher's face turns red. His voice rises to a shout. You don't get to lecture me about responsibility. You're nothing but a glorified mechanic who thinks she knows better than trained officers. He turns to the others. This is what happens when you let people forget their place, forget their rank, forget their limitations. Griffin nods eagerly. She's always been too big for her britches, thinking she's some kind of engineering genius, when she's just a technician. Hawthorne joins in the pile-on. The public execution acts like she built everything here, when all she does is follow instruction manuals. Behind them, patients are dying, monitors are failing, equipment is shutting down. But they're more interested in putting Mira in her place than saving lives. Dr. Mendez pushes through, her voice desperate. I don't care about rank, about authority, about regulations. I need power to save lives. Fix it. Whoever can fix it, fix it now. Mira looks around at the faces watching her, some hostile, some indifferent, some secretly hoping she'll succeed but afraid to say so. She sees the captain still staring at his instruments, still unable to understand why his textbook solutions failed in the real world. She sees Gallagher waiting for her to fail completely to prove his point about her limitations. She sees the others, the audience, for her humiliation, her public breakdown, her final defeat. And in the corner, almost invisible in the red emergency lighting, she sees Clover Santiago, still taking notes, still observing, still watching everything. Their eyes meet across the chaos, across the judgment, across the cruel laughter. Santiago nods, just once, the same recognition as before, but stronger, now more urgent, more necessary. Like she's saying, this is your moment, this is your test. This is when you choose between silence and truth, between hiding and standing, between being invisible and being seen. The generators continue to fail, the alarms continue to sound, the patients continue to crash, and everyone continues to wait for someone else to save them. What do you do when the people who mock you need you to save them? When the people who diminish you depend on your expertise? When being right means proving everyone wrong? When saving lives means risking everything? The red lights flicker, the batteries drain, the time runs out, and Mira Booker stands at the center of everyone's attention for the first time in her life, with the weight of her grandfather's legacy in her pocket and the choice between silence and action in her hands. Mira doesn't hesitate. She moves to the distribution panel, her hands steady despite the watching eyes, despite the red emergency lighting, despite the sound of alarms that mean death is winning. Her fingers find the connections by touch, by instinct, by the knowledge passed down through blood and dedication from grandfather to granddaughter. First, the load balancing circuit, the one the captain destroyed, the one that prevents cascade failures, the one that keeps everything stable when the world tries to fall apart. Then the voltage regulation module, her own design, built from spare parts and necessity, and nights spent learning what the manuals never taught. The main generator coughs, sputters, catches, begins to purr with mechanical satisfaction. Lights flicker back to life, monitors resume their steady beeping, ventilators continue breathing for patients who can't, life support systems return to their vigil. Dr. Mendez exhales a sound like prayer, like gratitude, like relief, but Gallagher's face turns darker, more dangerous, more personal. She got lucky, he announces to the room, to the audience, to anyone who'll listen. Pure chance, nothing more. Doesn't change the fact that she violated orders, disregarded authority, undermined chain of command. The captain looks up from his failed calculations, his voice uncertain. But I don't understand how she knew what connections to make. The load calculations alone should have taken hours. Santiago steps forward from her corner, from her observation post, from her silence. Her voice carries clear and authoritative, the voice of someone who has seen enough, heard enough, documented enough. Perhaps, she says, you should ask Specialist Booker about her methods, about her training, about her grandfather. The tent goes quiet except for the steady hum of properly functioning equipment, of lives being saved, of death being held at bay. Santiago opens her clipboard, pulls out The photograph, the one of William Booker standing beside his generator at Chosin Reservoir 75 years ago. This is Technical Sergeant William Booker, she announces, Distinguished Service Cross recipient for maintaining field hospital power. Under impossible conditions for 17 days in sub-zero temperatures under enemy fire, she looks directly at Gallagher. Your specialist here is his granddaughter, trained by him before he died, inheriting not just his tools, but his expertise, his innovations, his solutions. The photograph passes from hand to hand, each person seeing for the first time the connection, the legacy, the bloodline of competent. Santiago continues, her voice gathering strength. Every modification she's made to your equipment, every improvement she's implemented, every problem she's solved matches innovations her grandfather developed and submitted to the Army 75 years ago, most of which were adopted as standard protocol. She's not improvising, she's implementing field-tested solutions from one of the Army's most decorated engineers. Gallagher stares at the photograph, at the evidence, at the undeniable truth that he's been wrong about everything. Griffin and Hawthorne look suddenly uncomfortable. Their jokes less funny, their mockery less justified, their cruelty more obvious. The captain examines the modifications Mira made, seeing them now with educated eyes, with professional understanding, with growing respect. These are brilliant, he admits. Quietly more efficient than standard design, more reliable under stress, more adaptable to field conditions. I couldn't have designed better solutions with unlimited time and perfect conditions. Santiago nods, opens her bag, pulls out the wooden box. The one with Myra's name, the one with her grandfather's medal. She opens it in front of everyone, revealing the bronze star, the technical drawings, the legacy of service, the proof of belonging. This Distinguished Service Cross, she announces, was awarded for actions that directly parallel what we've witnessed today, maintaining critical systems under hostile conditions, solving impossible problems with limited resources, saving lives through technical expertise and personal courage. She hands the medal to Mira in front of everyone, in front of the people who called her robot, who dismissed her contributions, who tried to diminish her value. Your grandfather would be proud, she says simply. Dr. Mendez steps forward, her voice firm, with authority, with respect, with recognition. Staff Sergeant Gallagher, she says, I'm requesting that Specialist Booker be promoted to Senior Technical Specialist with full authority over all electrical systems. Her expertise has saved more lives in this facility than any other single person, including medical personnel. That's not how Gallagher begins, but Santiago cuts him off. Actually, it is, she says, my report will recommend not only promotion, but commendation for outstanding service under adverse conditions, the same conditions her grandfather faced, the same challenges he overcame, the same dedication to mission accomplishment and care of personnel around the tent. Attitudes shift, like weather changing, like understanding dawning, like respect finally arriving. Nash Hawthorne approaches, his voice quiet, apologetic. I owe you an apology. We all do. I didn't know, didn't understand. Griffin nods, her mockery replaced by something like shame, by recognition of her own cruelty, her own ignorance. Even Bodie Rourke looks uncomfortable with his participation in the systematic dismissal of someone whose work kept them all alive. The captain extends his hand, professional respect from one engineer to another. Right. Like to study your modifications, learn from them, implement them at other facilities if you're willing to teach, instead of just work in silence. Mira looks around at faces that finally see her, at voices that finally hear her, at people who finally understand that competence doesn't require loudness, that expertise doesn't need announcement, that value speaks for itself. She accepts the handshake, the apology, the recognition, but her voice remains quiet, her manner unchanged, her focus still on the work. I'll teach anyone who wants to learn, she says simply, as long as it saves lives. Santiago smiles, makes her final note, closes her clipboard. That, she says, is exactly what your grandfather would have said. Outside, the generators hum steadily. The monitors beep rhythmically, the lights burn bright, and in the distance, another helicopter approaches with more wounded, more challenges, more opportunities for quiet competence to save the day. But now, when Mira moves through the field hospital, she's no longer invisible, no longer dismissed, no longer alone. Now, she carries her grandfather's legacy, not hidden in her pocket, but displayed on her chest, where everyone can see now. When equipment fails, when systems crash, when death threatens to claim victory, everyone knows who to call, who to trust, who to respect. The woman who keeps the lights on when everything else goes dark. The woman who inherited not just tools and knowledge, but the responsibility to stand between life and death with nothing but skill and dedication and the refusal to let anyone die on her watch. Santiago packs her bag. Her evaluation, complete her mission, accomplished her report, already written. Sometimes she tells Mira the best soldiers are the ones who fight their battles in silence, who win their wars without recognition, who save the world one circuit at a time. Your grandfather knew that your father knows that, and now everyone else knows it too. The bronze star catches the overhead, lighting heavy with meaning, heavy with history, heavy with the knowledge that some honors are earned in darkness and revealed in crisis, that some people don't need applause to do extraordinary work, don't need recognition to save lives, don't need thanks to keep serving. They just need the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when everything falls apart, they know how to put it back together, that when death comes calling, they have the tools, the knowledge, the courage to answer back, not with words, but with work, not with noise, but with competence, not with ego, but with service. The generators keep humming, the monitors keep beeping, the lights keep burning, and Mira Booker keeps working because that's what engineers do, what soldiers do, what she does, keep the lights on when the world goes dark. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe.